Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really glad to have with me once again Eric Coffin. Eric is a good friend of mine. He's a newsletter writer, competing newsletter writer, but he's very, very good. In terms of understanding the fundamentals of exploration stocks, and as I was mentioning in the segue to this part of the program, exploration is where most of the big percentage gains are made in the mining sector. The big guys will do well in a bull market. The Newmonts, the Goldcorps, the Agnico Eagles, and all those guys will do quite well. But in terms of percentage gains, the exploration guys, the little tiny market companies that can go out and find 5-10 million ounces of gold can do extremely well. And by comparison, a 5 million ounce discovery for a Newmont is not nearly as important as it is to a small market cap company. So, Eric, thanks so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me on again, Jay. Always happy to do it.
Always good to have you with me, and I want to tell my listeners it's hraadvisory.com, hraadvisory.com, to follow Eric and what he does with his very important newsletter called HRA, the Hard Rock Analyst letter, and it is really about as good as any there is out there in terms of understanding the fundamentals in the exploration business. What a difference a year makes, Eric. Can you give our listeners a little sense of how your stocks are performing so far this year?
Well, I can't really complain. I mean, the average of I've been careful not to go crazy and start, suddenly be following 200 stocks. That's never been my MO. I try to pick things carefully and keep the group of stocks I follow to something manageable. I've added 11 in the last year. The average gain on those is about 300% right now. And during that same period, I've had 7 come off the list because they were taken over by producers. And really, I've kind of, I guess, split the coverage. There's been 2 basic kinds of companies to really oversimplify things that I've been adding. One is sort of what I call development level stories. That's somebody who's got a resource that I think the market hasn't paid a lot of attention to yet, but that I think has the potential to be economic, and that I expect the exit opportunity to be a takeover by a producer. The other group that I've focused on has been, as you mentioned, earlier stage exploration stories, and I've been looking for companies that generally aren't well followed. When I start following them, I kind of like to be one of the first guys in, and I look for something that has demonstrably large potential. I mean, obviously the potential is only going to be realized if the drill bit comes back with what we want, but also ones where I like the model, I like the size potential, and obviously, very importantly, I've got a lot of trust and respect for the management, because when you're dealing with an exploration stock, of course, management's extremely important, because you basically need to have guys that know what they're doing. There's lots of people out there with exploration properties who don't know what they're doing, and I try to avoid those.
Yeah, it's good advice, and I guess I know that Brent Cook paid a tribute to you once in the past and said, Jay, there's nobody up there in the Vancouver market that knows these people better than Eric Coffin. So I think knowing the people, you sit down and talk to these guys, you open up the maps, the geological maps, you get a sense of what the potential is from a geological point of view to a great extent. But you know these guys personally, you sit down next to them, you have access to them more easily than I do, certainly from you're where the action is out there to a great extent in Vancouver, in the western part of the continent. So I guess it's to a great extent it's the guys that have that really have had the success and the people that and also I would mention that one of the things that's really important also is integrity and the ability of people to to tell it like it is, but I find, generally speaking, maybe you agree with me, that geologists usually are a little, they're scientists, they're the people that have a professional reputation to protect, and so they tend to be a little bit more reliable than some of the other hot air artists, IR guys sometimes.
Well, yeah, generally speaking, when I talk to a company, I don't have a problem with IR guys, I don't have a problem with promotion, but when I'm looking at a company and deciding whether, I'm going to put my hand up or buy some of it and tell readers they should do the same thing, I want to talk to the technical guys, and I want to talk to the CEO, since obviously that's where the buck stops at the end of the day. And I mean, to give you a couple of examples, I mean, Colorado, which is one I think you mentioned there.
Yeah,
that's a stock I followed for a while. I sat down with Adam Travis, who's a very experienced, very good geologist. There's 3 or 4 guys in that company that are extremely well-known and successful geologists, and he was very hot on this target on his KSM property up in what's called the Golden Triangle in BC, and he walked me through it, and I was impressed. I mean, it's got to be drilled, but it was quite easy to see that it had the potential for a multi-million-ounce discovery and one that had grade, so I basically started pounding the table on this thing early this year when it was 8 or 9 cents. It's trading at about 65 now. They put out some results that were decent. He's had another big move up in the last couple of days, and I think that was actually him being at the Sprott conference last week, and obviously people that talked to him came away as impressed as I was a few months ago, because he generated a lot of buying out of that. A more advanced example I would give you is a company called GMV Minerals. This one's interesting to me because I found it because I was looking for new development level stories, and I sort of went about it by searching a little differently than other people might. I didn't go looking for news releases about resources. I went looking for news releases about metallurgy. Mm-hmm. And I found this one. Right now it's not a large deposit. It's a little bit over 500,000 ounces in southeast Arizona, but the metallurgy is extremely good, very, very high recoveries. And that's a key thing when you're dealing with these oxide heap leach deposits. You need to have the recoveries. And if you stack this one up, even though the official grade is 0.7 grams, the recoveries are so high, your recovered grade's above 0.6, and that actually stacks up quite well against a lot of the producers out there. And obviously the other thing that once I'd looked at the company, and then I realized, having done that the guy running it, Ian Klassen, is a guy I've known for 20 years. Mm-hmm. The guy that's running the project, Dave Webb's a guy I've known for 20 years. And that kind of sealed the deal for me, and I put my hand up for whatever placements were happening and wrote it up and introduced it to my readers. They actually put up more metallurgy this morning that looks extremely strong, and one of the most interesting results in the metallurgy, and I caution everybody that this is a wild ass guess on my part, but one thing that was interesting is all the samples in the bottle roll test, the calculated grade, which comes from basically measuring the gold that comes out during the bottle roll process and working the weight backwards to figure out what the assay is, was higher in all cases by 20-25% than the actual assays that they did before they started the bottle roll. This could just be a weird fluke, but one potential reason for this is simply that assays have been understating the grade all along, which isn't out of the question given the kind of deposit this is. If that's the case, and their grade is actually 0.8, 0.85 rather than 0.7, somebody's taking the sucker out, because it's a very simple, straightforward, good logistics, good place to be in southeast Arizona. I don't think they'll have permitting issues. They're about to start drilling again. Dave Webb walked me through the drill holes he's planning, and I think there's pretty good potential for them to take this 500,000 ounces to 700,000 or 800,000 ounces, and it's probably still going to be open in some of these zones. And you get up into that size range with something with this potential economics, I think somebody takes it out before 2017 is over, frankly.
Yeah. Do you see some exploration potential for it? Is any high grade deeper potential there, or is it just really an oxide?
Yeah, there may be some of the historic results, and they came from an operator that's kind of a little bit on the sketchy side, so they haven't been talking about this at all. But there are some historic, fairly high grade results that came out of this project. They are going to look into that. They're also looking into the deeper units. I mean, all of this stuff is in the volcanics near surface. It's open pitable. Right below that is a series of sedimentary rock units that are essentially the same as the ones in the Carlin Trend and a couple of the other high-grade trends in Nevada. Those have never been drilled. Webb is trying to figure out a way to target those, but he mentioned to me that he did get his hands on a bunch of the old core. One of those holes did actually get drilled down into that deep stuff, And he said it's really interesting looking core. He's not 100% sure where the collar location is, so he didn't bother asking it because he can't report it. But he's pretty intrigued by that. The other thing too is there are a number of parallel structures in both directions that are basically sitting the same way as the structures that control the mineralization. Those are kind of out in the flats. Mexican Hat is a hill. The resource is actually on the side of a hill. When you get on the flats, apparently the overburden isn't actually very deep. It's only 2 or 3 meters, but there's really no outcrop off the hill. So he's going to be doing some geophysics and geochemistry because he thinks he's got good odds of finding repeats out in the flats that have never been drilled before. So yeah, there is actually a fair amount of exploration potential.
Well, it sounds like there might be a pretty low stripping ratio, low mining cost there too as well, Eric, huh?
Yeah, the strip ratio in the resource that they calculated last year is about 1.5 to 1. The potential here is for what's called run-of-mine production, which means no multi-stage crush, probably no agglomeration. Those are two fairly high-cost parts of the process for a heap leach. If this is run-of-mine, both the capex and the opex would be quite low, and that's why I'm looking. Even though this is a 500,000 or 600,000 ounce deposit right now, I don't have a lot of trouble envisaging somebody taking this thing out because it could be a small but very profitable operation.
Let me ask you, Eric, what's the price and sort of what kind of market cap is on it now?
It's trading right now. Today, it's trading at about 47 cents Canadian, which gives it a market cap of just under 10 million Canadian.
10 million Canadian, or about 7 million US, yeah.
It's fairly tight. There's only about 22 million shares out. 7 or 8 guys have about 1 million shares each. Most of those, according to management, and I know who some of them are, most of those are industry guys, mining executives, who are quite well aware of what the potential is here. I don't see those guys as sellers. I added it to the journal about a week ago because there were warrants coming due in a couple of weeks, and I expected to see some selling off of that, and I wanted people to take advantage of it. I think there may be there's a hedge fund that bought about 1 million shares about a year ago, and they've been trying to get these guys to do a deal to sell the project cheap, which they've obviously said no to. I suspect those guys might be the sellers in the market right now, which I'm completely fine with.
Yeah, gives people an opportunity. So, so I mean, there you have it, folks. There's a freebie from Eric Coffin. He's given you one of his most recent picks. But if you really want to take advantage of Eric's ongoing information and advice, I would suggest you go to hraadvisory.com, sign up for his letter, very reasonably priced letter. Eric, you also have a very fine Metals Investor Forum that I was very privileged to be a part of last year. Tell our listeners about that, and when do you expect to have another one?
We did one in May, which was 2 days, and as you well know, the newsletter editors, including yourself, are invited to it, and those newsletter editors in turn invite companies to it. The only companies that present at these forums are companies that have been invited by the newsletter writers that are also presenting there. The last one was 2 days, really successful, great crowd.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
All the guys, including Jay, did a great job on the presentations. The next one is coming up on, I believe it's the 12th of November. I will be start sending out invites on that relatively soon, and I'll probably try to make sure we get you up there again, Jay, so you can enjoy Vancouver in November, which is not quite as nice as Vancouver in May, granted.
No. But Vancouver is a favorite town of mine. Anytime I'd love to go, but more importantly because of the quality of the event, Eric, and you and Scott Gibson have done a remarkable job, I think, in providing some excellent companies up there. So it's well worth it. I just want my listeners to be aware of that, and of course we'll have you back on hopefully to talk about it as we near that date and more often than that, I hope.
If you don't subscribe, if you add yourself to the free list on the hraadvisory.com site, you will be one of the people getting an invite once those invites start going out. I mean, the list that it goes to after the subscribers is the free list. So,
okay, there you have it, folks.
That's the one to make sure you get one.
hraadvisory.com. Go there, put your name on the list, and you'll be prompted to attend, to give you the opportunity and the invitation to attend. Eric, anything else? We got about 30 seconds left here. Anything else you'd like to say before we just...
Well, I never thought we'd have a summer pullback. We haven't yet, and based on the way things are going, to me, it looks pretty unlikely like we're going to. The negative rate environment that I think is driving everything and is behind everything doesn't look to me like it's changing anytime soon.
No.
Numbers are weakening in the U.S. and they've been weakening everywhere else for 3 or 4 months. So I think these negative rates are here for a while.
Yeah, very, very gold and silver friendly, no doubt about it. I think it's hard to argue. I make the old argument that people always made for so many years. Oh, you don't get any interest on your gold. Why would you own the stupid metal? And of course, how much interest are you getting in putting your money in the bank these days? So it's negative in some places.
Well, the gold price is going up, which is kind of nice.
It's kind of nice. So it's really nice for the companies and the economics of these companies, Eric. It really is. What a difference a year makes. What a difference 6, 7, 8 months make, actually. But thanks so much for being with us.
We're all overdue.
And thanks so much. Yeah, a 5-year bear market. But thanks so much for passing along your insights, Eric. And always good to hear from you. And we'll do it again sometime soon, I hope. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Right. Thanks, Jay.